Okay, adding and subtracting fractions. So we kind of started this last week. Like fractions are fractions that have the same denominator. So remember, denominator means in a fraction, your bottom number. To add or subtract like fractions, add or subtract the numerators, which is your top number, and write the result over the denominator. So we don't add the denominators together. If they're the same, then your answer is going to have the same denominator. So in example 1, we've got 3/4 plus 1/4. So my denominators already match. So that means my answer is going to have the same denominator. And then I just want to go up and add my numerators. So 3 plus 1 is 4. That gives me 4/4. And that reduces down to 1. On example 2, same thing. 2/3 minus 1/3. So I already have the same denominator. So that's going to be 3. Then now I just have to look at my numerators. So 2 minus 1, which is 1. And that's as small as we can make that one. So down here on the bottom, I'm going to go through the first row. That's what we did in class. And then the second row, I'll write those answers down so you can check them if you didn't get a chance to check them today. Okay, so number 1, 5/8 plus 1/8. Okay, got the same denominator, so it's going to be the same for my answer. And then I add my numerators together. So 5 plus 1 is 6. And I can reduce that down. So 6/8, always start with the lowest number you can think of. So always start with like 2. So 2 will go into those two numbers. 2 goes into 6 3 times. And 2 goes into 8 4 times. And that's as small as I can make that one. So now number 3, I've got the same denominator. So that's going to stay the same. And now up at the top, I have this negative here, and I don't want to ignore that. So I've got -1 plus 3. So I'm going to write that down here separately. -1 plus 3. So it's a little bit easier to see. So think about those integer problems. We've got a negative, and we've got a positive. So same sign, add and keep, different signs, subtract. So that'll give me 2. And take the sign that's on the larger number. So 3 is bigger than 1, so it's going to be positive 2/4. And then I can reduce that down to 1/2. Number 5, same thing. My denominators match, so I'm good to go. All I have to do is add my numerators, and that gives me 10/9. When we're dealing with these, when we're adding and subtracting, we don't want an improper fraction. So I've got to turn it into a mixed number. So to do that, I just divide it. So my top dog, my 10 goes in the doghouse, divided by the denominator. So 9 goes into 10 one time. And then now this becomes my numerator, 1. And then this becomes my denominator. So 1 1/9. Okay, number 7, I've got same, so that's going to be my denominator, and then just add 3 plus 1, so 4/10. I can make this a little bit smaller. I can simplify it down to 2/5. And then number 9, I've got 15, and then now my numerator, 7 plus 4, and that gives me 11, and that's as small as we can go. Okay, you're just going to flash this over here so you guys can see those answers if you need to check your own. Okay, so then adding and subtracting with different denominators. So to add or subtract fractions with different denominators, rename the fractions using the least common denominator. Add or subtract as with like fractions. Once you've changed them, if necessary, simplify. So determine 2/3 plus 1/4, use the lowest common denominator. So when I do this, when I have two different denominators, I write them vertically just so it's a little bit easier to see when I'm changing them. So I need the lowest common denominator for 3 and 4. So if you need to, off to the side, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Start writing your multiples of each number. So 4, 8, 12, and you should be able to find your lowest common denominator. So in this case, it's 12. And now I've got to change these fractions to make them have these denominators. So 3 can go into 12 4 times. So that means I would have had to multiply by 4. And whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Okay, so 2 times 4 gives me 8. And that's my new fraction. I just changed 2/3 into 8/12. Same thing on the bottom. 4 goes into 12 3 times. What I do to the bottom, I'm going to do to the top. So 1 times 3 is 3. And so go back up to your original problem if you need to and check to make sure what operation we're using. In this case, we're adding. So 8/12 plus 3/12. So 12 is my denominator, and then I just have to add my numerator. So 11/12. And that's as low as we can go. So same thing, I'm going to go through this first column, the odd numbers, and then I'll kind of flash the second column up here. So number 1, 1/2 plus 3/4. Again, I write it vertically. I feel like it helps. I would highly recommend you do the same. It's just a lot easier to see when they're vertical when you change your fractions. So we need the lowest common denominator. Some of you are good at just eyeballing it, but if you need to, again, write your multiples out to the side. In this case, 4 will be our lowest because 4 can go into itself 1 time. So 4 goes into 4 1 time. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 3 times 1 is just 3. And 2 goes into 4 2 times. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And then now we just have to add our numerators together. 2/4 plus 3/4. So 2 plus 3 gives me 5/4. And I don't like that because it's an improper fraction. So I'm going to turn it into a mixed number. Top dog in the doghouse, 1 1/4. Okay, number 2, I've got 7/15 plus negative 5/6. So I need to find common denominator between 15 and 6. So my multiples of 6, I've got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 15, 30, and there we go. So 30 is what I want to use. So 30 is my new denominator. 15 goes into 30 twice. So then 7 times 2 gives me 14. So now that's my new fraction. And then on the bottom, 6 goes in to 35 times. So times 5 times 5. What you do to the bottom, you're going to do to the top. 25. And now let's solve the problem. So 14 over 30 plus negative 25 over 30. And so we don't want to forget about that negative there. 14 plus negative 25. So thinking back to those integer rules, if I've got a positive and a negative, I have 2 different signs. That means I'm going to subtract. So when I subtract those digits, that gives me 11. And then I've got to take the sign that's on the bigger digit. So in this case, 25 is my bigger digit. So negative 11 over 30. Number 5 down at the bottom. We got 5/9 plus negative 5/12. So I'm looking for a common denominator between 9 and 12. So 9, 18, 27, 36. I'm going to stop there because that looks familiar. 12, 24, 36. So it's going to be my new denominator. And 9 will go into 6 4 times. So times 4 to change that whole fraction. And then 12 will go into 36 3 times. So 5 times 3, I want to change the whole fraction. And that was a negative. So 20 over 36. Basically minus, you can do that if you need to. 15 minus over 36. So 20 minus 15, 5 over 36. Number 7, 7/8 and 1/3. And I already see this minus negative. You can do your keep, change if you learned to circle it and turn it into a plus sign. Either way, but I would change it first before I get into the fractions, just so I don't forget to do that at the end. So keep, change. So really my problem is 7/8 plus positive 1/3 with keep, change. So I need a common denominator with 3 and 8. So if you need to, take a second off to the side. 8, 16, 24, 32, my 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. I'm going to kind of skip ahead because I already know 24 is going to be in there. So that should be my common denominator, my lowest common denominator. 8 goes into 24 3 times. So I'm going to multiply the top by 3 as well. That gives me 21. 3 can go into 24 8 times. So I'm going to multiply the top as well. And then think back to what your problem was. Go back up here and look at the operation. So 21 over 24 plus 8 over 24. So I know my denominator should be 24. And my top number now, 29. So it's improper, so I've got to divide to turn it into a mixed number. So let's take 29 divided by 24. And that becomes my numerator. So really my answer, final answer, is 1 5/24. Last one, 3/10 plus 7/12. So I need a denominator for both of these. And you can go out to the side and write your multiples down. It's going to end up being 60. That's the lowest that it can go into. And so 10 can go into 60 6 times. So I multiply my top number by 6 to match them. And then same thing on the bottom. 12 can go into 65 times. So then I'm left with 35. And so 18 over 60 plus 35 over 60. And I get 53 over 60. Okay, just going to flash these answers. Negative 1/8, 1/15, 1/6, 5/18, and 1/4/15. So if you've already done this and you're checking your answers, go back and see where you may have messed up.